Good evening, wherever you are, listening to Zeno Radio and LBW Radio Ministries. You might be in Africa, you might be in Australia, in Asia, in Europe, in South America, in the US, Canada, wherever you are located. I am Roy Graneau, the host of Churches of Christ around the world. This is a radio broadcast to bring awareness to members of the Churches of Christ around the world, to help members to know and to understand how churches of Christ got to different parts of the world and the status of the churches. If this is your first time, I welcome you on board in joining today's broadcast. With me in studio is Brother Luis Romain. Brother Romain, welcome.
Graneau, thank you very much. Good morning, of course, to all of our listeners and followers all over the world. It's good to be with you this morning.
It is a pleasure to have you, Brother Luis, on Churches of Christ around the world. Let me take the opportunity to welcome you to this live broadcast this morning. May I ask you to give our radio listeners some information about yourself? Who is Luis Romain?
Uh, Louis Romain is a little country boy that was born on a mountain in Dominica called Toto in the village of Cottage on March 1st, 1956. Of course, grew up in that area between Cottage and Penville, Portsmouth. Went to school in Portsmouth, Savonpie, Penville, and then Savonpie. Grew up, of course, doing various chores, various works, until finally ended up doing a job, landing a job in Roseau in 1975 at the Astor Hotel. It was while being in Roseau, I got introduced to the Church of Christ at the time. You can remember, because I've still gone on to study. I was encouraged by the leaders in Roseau at the time, and I accepted their recommendation. Attended the Trinidad School of Preaching, where I graduated from, and been married past several years to Adriana Alexander. That was a maiden surname at the time. And from that relationship, born 5 boys who are all now grown, have their families. And from those families, we have 9 grandchildren, 6 boys, and 3 girls. Um, Basically, that's who I am. Been, of course, preaching on the island. My first stint was in La Plaine. Then, of course, came back north in 1981 And since that time, we have been in the Portsmouth area. Of course, the ministry work throughout the island. And I'm not sure what else you would like me to say.
Yes, because I'm listening to your history. And when did you say that you got converted to Christianity? What year?
1975, September 1975.
1975. And then you went to receive your religious training in which country?
Trinidad,
In Trinidad.
San Fernando, Trinidad.
Okay, at that school of preaching in Trinidad.
Yeah,
You said you got baptized in 1975.
yes.
Do you have an idea as to when the Church of Christ came to the shores of Dominica?
Based on what I gleaned through some early members and also some information, historical information written by Brother Ralph Watton, the church started somewhere in 1966 in Dominica through correspondent costs. Brother Watton had placed an ad in a local newspaper, and several people, you know, accepted the invitation and they did the correspondent courses, and from that came a number of baptisms, and that's what started the work in Dominica, based on what I understand.
So Ralph Watton came to Dominica, but Ralph Watton is not from Dominica. So where is Ralph Watton from?
He was a U.S. missionary based in St. Vincent at the time.
Mhm. And then he came to Dominica because of the work of correspondence courses that were circulated in the islands.
Yes, yes.
Right. So do you know who were the original converts?
Original converts would be people like Brother Michelin Williams, Ernest Roberts, Eisenhower Etienne, um, what's her name? I think it's Sister Lee. Trying to remember first name. Cynthia Lee. And based on what I heard from Sister Ruina, um, Benjamin Elise, Sister Ruina was the first convert in Portsmouth. Of course, the other converts at at the time from that effort, a lot of activity took place based on what I understand. But this would be some of the original members, early members, of course, like Brother Ike being the first in Bakers, Brother Mitch being the first in Marigot, Brother Ernest Roberts originally was from Graneau. So that's how the work really get started. Sister Cynthia Lee, of course, was from the Paybush area. Her father, of course, being from Marigot, her mother being from Paybush.
Some of these people, the new converts, Ralph helped to introduce to the Church of Christ. Are these converts still alive? Do you know of their whereabouts?
May not know the exact address. I know, of course, Brother Eisenhower Etienne is in the U.S., also in Canada. He has been a professor in both countries. Sister Rowena, who is original from Portsmouth, she is in Florida. Sister Cynthia Lee in Florida. Um, Brother Ernest Roberts is in Grenada. I am not sure about whether Mitchip is still with us physically. Um, since Cynthia Lee, I think, like I said, is in Florida, along with her sister, Sister Mary Rivera, married to Brother Shinwell Rivera. They are in Florida.
Okay. Thank you for that bit of information. I'm going to come back to the church very soon. Our listeners are hearing that you are from Dominica, Luis Romain from Dominica. Can you give them people like in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in the UK who do not know anything about Dominica? Can you give people an idea? Where is that Dominica?
Okay. You mentioned Europe. let me let me use that as as a little how should say little what do you call it, humor, because I tell some of our guests who come to Dominica many times that Dominica is situated between Europe. And so Europe, you could see the puzzle, how they feel on their faces, how they just trying to figure out what I'm talking about. Those of you who are familiar with geography, you have North America, South America. There's an arch of islands in the Caribbean Sea, and Dominica is in the center of that arch of islands, basically. And we are situated between two French islands. These French islands, of course, the Department of France, Guadeloupe to the north, and Martinique to the south, so that we are able to help people identify Dominica easier, telling them Dominica is between these two islands. So we are between Europe. Of course, we have Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Greater Antilles, and so on, Hispaniola up to the north, Trinidad, Barbados down south, of course, all the way to Guyana, Venezuela. So we are in that chain of islands, in what is known as the Windward Islands. We are the biggest of the four Windward Islands. So it's not difficult to find Dominica. If you go down from Puerto Rico south, come up from Venezuela north, in that chain of islands, you'll find Dominica somewhere in the middle of that chain.
Okay, so you said that Dominica is situated between the French departments of Martinique and Guadeloupe.
Yeah.
So, what language do you speak in Dominica?
Our main language is English, but we also speak a second dialect, French, broken French called Creole or Patois. For example, I'd say bonjour, it sounds like French, or ask Saka Fet, that means what's happening, or how are you? So I may ask Saki now, that means what is your name? And you will tell me no more say or no more say Roy, no more say Luis, and so on and so forth. So we speak that second language because is considered the mother tongue of the island. But of course, English is the of course official language on the island. Of course, Creole is widely spoken. A local radio program every day in the afternoon on the state-owned radio station. We have Creole program. We have Creole news every morning, Creole news every afternoon, and of course, there is a great effort made every year towards our celebration of anniversary of independence, where the language is widely spoken.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Yeah.
Um, with Dominica, what is the size of Dominica?
Dominica is 29 miles long, 16 miles wide, about 290 square miles.
All right. So, the geographical location and what you were um, telling us in terms of where Dominica is located, it can be confusing to some people who are new. Um, is that Dominica the Dominican Republic?
It is not. It is not the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic shares Hispaniola with Haiti, and that's not who we are. Dominican Republic, the Spanish is the official language, but in Dominica, our official language is English. So we are very different to the Dominican Republic.
Right. So the makeup of the country. You said that you're a small country based on the size that you shared with us. What is the population like?
At the last census, it was said that we had 72,000 residents in Dominica. 72,000. That's the population of the island. I'm not sure what
Uh,
it is right now.
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. 72,000. So you have 72,000 on a small island in the midst of the Caribbean Sea. What is the economy of the country like?
Presently, it is challenging. It's very challenging economically, being impacted by global events. Of course, just came out from COVID 19, which affected the whole world. And of course, the war in Ukraine and Russia, of course, has impacted the entire world. For example, you have fuel prices going up and down. Right now, it's up. So these events have really impacted Dominica. We have not done as much as we could have done from agriculture, which is, or call it the mainstay of the economy. Um, Tourism this past season here has been pretty good, but right now there's a little bit of stagnancy as far as the economy is concerned.
Okay, so you have about 70,000 people. You have a mixed economy, and most of your population, what is the demographics like in terms of the origin of the people? Where are they from?
The general population, Afro-West Indian, of course, being brought here, our ancestors being brought here from Africa, this make up the major part of the population. You still have, however, the indigenous people, at least one of the tribes of the indigenous people that Christopher Columbus met here when he came, or when we say in Dominica, when he sighted the island on November 3rd, 1493. These people are still here. They are the Kalinago tribe living in a reservation on the eastern part of the island called the Kalinago territory, occupying 3,782 acres. That, of course, initially that area was given to them by Hesketh Bell in 1901. 3,700 acres were given to them. The administration of the United Workers' Party gave them an additional 82 acres. So that's where they reside. It is said that they have approximately 3,500 of them. But we have people from all over the world in Dominica. You can almost see Dominica as a cosmopolitan country. Of course, the major part of the population are Afro-West Indians. And of course, you have people from France, you have people from Germany, you have people from the US, from Canada, from Nigeria, from India, different parts of the world residing and working on Dominica.
Okay, and let's go back to the information that you gave us earlier. You said that Brother Watton came to Dominica in the 60s. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
And a number of people were converted, and that gave rise to new congregations being planted on the island. So, from the initial work of Brother Watton, um, how many congregations do we now have on the island of Dominica of the Church
We
of
now
Christ?
have 10 congregations on the island, and as far as I understand, there's a couple resides in the village of Trafalgar. There used to be a small congregation in Trafalgar, but officially there are 10 congregations on the island.
10 congregations per population of 70,000. So,
Yes.
you made mention also of the Kalinago people, the Caribs, that they have their own territory. Is there a congregation in the Carib territory?
No, there's not a congregation in the territory. I know work was done in the territory many years ago. There used to be a family, this one sister who was a member. She has since passed. A lot of work, like people like Brother Gary, Edward Gary would have done some work in the territory. I think his wife used to be from the territory. The closest congregation to the territory right now would be the congregation at Good Hope to the south and Marigot to the north.
Okay. So, would you say, based on the population and the number of congregations on the island, that the church is serving most of the areas or the communities where a church would be needed?
I would say most of the population, but still there are areas that needs to be reached. Although I understand in some of the areas work was done in the past. You know,
Hmm.
for example, the village of Kalibishi in the north, the villages of St. Joseph and Coliho in the west. Work was done in those areas, and based on what I've read, a lot of work was done all over the island. There are a few Christians who were in some areas all over the island. Work was a lot of work was done by the early members, like I mentioned before, the names I mentioned. One sister, Sister Rena, told me they did a lot of open airs, a lot of public preaching throughout various parts of the island, and some of these areas no longer have congregations. For
Hmm.
example, in the village of Benz, a lot of work was done in Benz by us from Portsmouth and probably Bakers in the past. But we have one or two members in Benz who come to Portsmouth. We never really had a congregation based in the village. But generally, the members would come to Portsmouth to worship. So you have situations like that. But there's still some work to be done. Like some work was done in Castle Bruce many years ago and other parts of the island.
Okay. So, you are looking at the work of the church. You have 10 congregations on the island. These congregations, are they served with having preachers, having elders? What is the makeup of the congregations like?
There are no elders. None of the congregation have elders presently. Um, Most of the congregation have preachers. The congregation that do not have really full-time preacher will be like Marigot, especially Marigot. Of course, other congregations are being served by men, whether full-time or part-time. But you have these men, of course, in Marigot. We have, for example, Brother Errol Emmanuel, who goes to Marigot regularly from Rosa to assist the brethren there. Um, of course, Vickers would have been another case, but Brother Francis Graneau has been, holding the fort there along with the other men. And that's two examples. And other areas, of course, um, but other congregations are served by preachers.
Okay. And looking at the church, um, and the work that is being done, what is the cooperation like among the churches? The fellowship, the cooperation, the working together, or are there divisions like sometimes you find among churches?
For the most part, the churches in Dominica work together well. Of course, like anywhere else, you have one or two who may not want to fully cooperate for whatever concept or philosophy that they may embrace. We have that, of course, affecting particularly one congregation on the island. But generally speaking, the congregations work together. Let me just give you an example. On March 31st, the last Sunday in the month of March, we normally have a fellowship meal every fifth Sunday. Well, a month out of 5 Sundays, the fifth Sunday we have a fellowship meal in Portsmouth. So what we did on March 31st, we invited Bakers and Salisbury to be with us, and we
Mhm.
had a wonderful time. Of course, in December before that, there was an island-wide fellowship. We generally, most of the congregation except one congregation from the 10 did not attend.
Okay.
Uh, but on March 31st, we had a grand time, not only in spiritual fellowship, but we ate together. And after lunch, we had what is called a sing inspiration, and it went well. Even little children were involved in singing. It was a wonderful, wonderful time together. So we do work together. A lot of things we do together. In the month of February, before that, of course, we through our contacts in the U.S., we were able to get some, for example, things for benevolent work that we also shared with the various congregations on the island. It came through Portsmouth, but because of our level of cooperation, we were able to share most of that with other sister congregations that they themselves did distribution among themselves and also among the general population.
Okay. Um, I'm going to come back to the church.
Yeah, probably one of the before you go to elaborate, one of the work of cooperation we have on the island, which has been going on for quite a number of years, is a radio program.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you have a radio ministry, and how has that been going on in terms of serving the church?
Pretty well, as a matter of fact, probably even better than we think, because we don't get responses, people calling in or writing in. But when you go to the public, just this week, I've had several people tell me they listen to the radio program. They listen to Brother Dexter. They listen to me because Brother Dexter has been very involved in the radio program, even from the distance he is. And people still listen to the program and they give me feedback that they listen to the program. There's a lady at the hospital on Monday, and she was telling me the program is very educational. She liked the program. So sometimes we kind of underestimate the effects of the radio,
Hmm.
but like we are on right now on the radio, we never know. We don't know who is listening. We have no idea who's listening.
That's right.
All we can do is preach the word. The seed will fall on the soil it's supposed to fall and produce what God wants it to produce.
Okay. Um, the church exists on the island with about 10 congregations. Do you have a school of preaching, some training center where people can be trained to become preachers or workers for the church?
Based on the history of the church in Dominica, the preachers who have been trained were initially I've gone to CCC, Caribbean Christian College in Puerto Rico. I know Brother Eisenhower Etienne had done a stint with Brother Ralph Wharton in St. Vincent in his early Christian life. And after that, of course, we had Trinidad School of Preaching. Interestingly enough, of course, I was the first person to attend Trinidad School of Preaching from Dominica. And Dominica has produced quite a number of preachers, especially attending the Trinidad School of Preaching. Of course, I know there have been a lot of, you know, seminars and workshops done on island. There was one particular brother, Roger Dixon, who came to Dominica regularly to do, workshops and seminars with us on island. Those who could not go to preaching school, I mean, those of us who had gone to preaching school, they serve as refreshers to us. And he had done a great work. And of course, other brothers who were involved in other aspects of, extension work, like um, brother in Jamaica, I'm trying to remember his name, originally
That's
from St.
is that Brother Francis York?
Brother Francis Yuck, exactly. Brother Francis Yuck has done a lot of work as well in that area. So, of course, we've had a recent, how you call it, meeting and kind of session with some brethren who are involved in the work in Massac and Good Hope. This congregation that sponsored them. A brother was brought over to talk to us about the whole idea of extension work. So we're looking at that because right now there we don't have anyone attending any preaching school from Dominica. And that would go a long way in assisting in training men who don't have the time to go to preaching school, who don't may have the resources to go to preaching school. But things like that definitely would go well. So we're trying to revive that aspect to keep ongoing training for the brothers who need to be trained.
Okay. So since you are a small island and small population of about 70,000 people, and you do not have a training school, so the training schools that exist in the Caribbean, the men from Dominica have benefited from them, from Trinidad to Puerto Rico to Jamaica,
Ja-
and
Jamaica. Mhm.
yeah, and are these men back in Dominica who have gone? Are they back in Dominica helping with the work? What is the situation?
The vast number of men who have gone to preaching school are no longer in Dominica.
Hmm.
Just a few brothers who have graduated from the school are back here. Namely, if I could call a few names, if you don't mind me,
Go ahead,
say
my
like
brother.
Brother Esau, Brother Kel Judge, Brother Esau of Leblanc, Brother Kel Judge, Brother Lester John, um, Brother Gary, Edward Gary, Brother Joseph Leblanc, and myself. Basically, these are the men who have gone to a preaching school who are presently in Dominica. Dominica produced many, many, many more preachers than us who are presently here.
Okay. And the church in Dominica, you have to do evangelism, you have to reach out to people, and that may encounter challenges and roadblocks and difficulties in doing that work. What are some of the difficulties that you may face on the island while trying to evangelize and reach out to people?
We do not have any really challenge in the sense where we cannot preach or teach. I think it's the will to do that. That is really probably the main challenge right now, the commitment, the devotion to do that. And of course, there's a need for financial support. Some of the congregations are still not able to be self supporting, still struggling. Generally, a lot of them are still small, and we know it's not easy to come by, but that's what would be needed to fully support a few preachers. Um, and that has been one of the drawbacks, so to speak, as far as the church in Dominica is concerned. Preachers have had to embark on secular work, feed their families, take care of the children, all of that, uh, pay their mortgage, all kind of stuff. So that has been one of the drawbacks. But as far as preaching the word itself, there's not really an obstacle. The only main challenge we face would be denominationalism, where
Hmm.
the truth is really being distorted, where you have people who more by their concept, by their feelings, by the teaching and commandments of men that seem to be more popular. But this would be probably the main obstacle, really, as far as evangelism is concerned, where we have to do a lot more work to get people to see the truth. But we do not have any, like persecution, anything like that kind of sense in Dominica, where it would be prevented from preaching the message.
You made mention of denominations. Um, what are some of the major denominations on the island?
The major denomination, as probably with many other places, will be Roman Catholicism.
Okay.
Have probably Adventism seem to be growing. Pentecostalism, although they have not really thrived as they used to, they're kind of down. But there are lot of splinter groups, even from these groups. There are splinter groups, for example, from Pentecost. And there are a lot of splinter groups among them, other divisions from the Baptists and others who have split, and they form various denominations, calling it by their own names and so on. So we have some of these that, of course, are among us. Of course, the Methodist Church is not as strong as it used to be, but they are still present. The Church of England, very few members, but the Church of England is still here. But the major groups would be around the. Of course, we also have the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons that seem to be taking some root in Dominica as well.
So you have all of the major um, denominations that exist in different parts of the Caribbean and the world in Dominica. Um, with the work that started in the 1960s, you made mention of um, the French departments of Guadeloupe and Martinique that are nearby to Dominica. Do you have any information of the Church of Christ on these French islands?
I know the church exists in Guadeloupe, but Eisenhower Etienne would have done some work there, probably in Martinique as well. But presently, there seem to be about two congregations in Guadeloupe. Um, there's a brother who contacted me not very long ago from Guadeloupe, so we do have some contact with the Reverend from Guadeloupe, but not well. As far as he told me, really, um, there doesn't seem to be any congregation on Martinique at this time.
Okay. With Dominica and the work and the limited resources that you have on the island in terms of job opportunities, you made mention that when preachers come from preaching school, they have to take care of their family and of their families, and that may contribute to migration of preachers leaving the island. the preachers that are now on the island helping with the church, um, are they all supported, or are they working secularly to take care of themselves?
Few of them are supported.
Mm,
Few of them are working secularly just to support their family.
okay. So what is the what is the future of the church looking like in Dominica?
Well, what can I say? We trust God to take care of the future of the church in Dominica. However, we're trying to mold the younger ones and try to expand the horizon in that regard. Our hope is that because of the promise of Christ, we know that the church will always exist. But then we have to get the commitment, especially from leadership, from men, to take their role. And that's something we're working on, trying to really motivate some of the brothers to step up to the plate. Many of us, of course, are aging, and we need young men to step in the arena to really take on the continuation of the work. Right now, it's challenging. It looks challenging. Even hearing from a brother this morning, it looks challenging, and we're just hoping that, that now, from now, as we continue to sow, that the Lord will produce, or He'll raise men to take care of the work. But there needs to be a greater commitment from the men in taking their leadership role.
Okay. So, Brother Luis, I want to personally thank you for your time and for the information that you have given to all of us, hearing maybe the first time about Dominica and the Church of Christ, how it got to Dominica, the status of the church, and what is being done at present. And I want to thank you as a fellow minister, as a fellow preacher, for working hard and for contributing your time and effort to the spiritual development of the Church of Christ on the island. And I want to thank the radio listeners who joined us today to listen to Brother Luis as he shared with us important information about the Church of Christ on the tiny island of Dominica. So, radio listeners, this was Churches of Christ around the world. Your host, Roy Graneau, and I was talking to Brother Luis Romain, minister of the Church of Christ, Portsmouth, Dominica, sharing with us important information about the church on that island. This is Zeno Radio and LBW Radio Ministries. It is an important tool to spread the gospel and to reach out to people with information about the Lord's church. So, once again, I say to you, it was a pleasure having you on board with us on Churches of Christ around the world. I am Roy Grano saying to you, go out and make it a great day for the Lord. Until next week, Saturday, when I shall have Brother Wizam, a former Muslim, converted to Christianity with us on Churches of Christ around the world at the same time. Have a great day.
Bum 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 bum.